Okay. Hello. My name is Maria Service. I am an Akashic Records channeler, past life healer. I do Akashic Records soul readings, Akashic Record healings, and periodically I will be going live on my YouTube channel to talk about the Akashic Records, soul readings, healings, or sometimes bringing a channeled message. Today, I wanted to bring a message on failure. So here's the thing. If you are a former or are a highly ambitious, high achiever, someone who feel like you set high goals for yourself, you're very ambitious. You maybe like to operate off checklists. You set high goals for yourself. And I will say I specifically tend to work with female CEOs and entrepreneurs. And so if this resonates with you, sometimes it can be hard to go after your dreams and go after it because there is a fear of failure. Now, in the same vein, many of us actually will find that there is also a deep-seated fear of success, but we will just say that that is a separate conversation for a separate day. Today, we are really going to break down this fear of failure and what is failure? Like, who is holding on to this fear of failure? And so I was sitting down this morning. Each morning, I make sure to plan time where I can drop down, drop into my meditation, connect with my higher self, my high vibrational light being team. I do have a process where I tap into my Akashic Records first thing in the morning. When I'm in the Akashic Records, I'm just tapping into the fifth and sixth plane energy so that I can receive clear intuitive messages. And this morning, a message on failure came through, and it's one that I wanted to share with the collective. So if you see that I'm looking down, I'm just referencing some of my notes from my morning meditation. However, I do have the Akashic Records open. So with that said, I will also just drop anything that I'm hearing to share. Okay, so let's break down what is failure. And in order to really discuss failure, I'm going to drop some definitions, what we define as quote unquote failure right now. But the other distinction that I want to make is that you are a soul having a human experience. Now, you may not fully believe or remember that right now, and you may. A part of you may believe that, a part of you may not. But that's where I actually want to bring up this topic of how you can have parts of yourself who maybe don't fully believe something just yet, and another part of you who knows XYZ to be true. And that's where I want to share how you are a soul having a human experience. So you have a soul self who easily and effortlessly taps in because soul self is higher self. Soul self has easy access to high vibrational light being team, to all of your high vibrational guides, to your archangels, to your elementals, to the whole soul world. Your higher self, your soul self already knows how to do it. Your soul self is limitless. Your soul self is a spark of the divine. Your soul self knows all of this. So then you ask, so Maria, why don't I believe it? Or why does a part of me not believe it? Or because that's just it. Your soul self knows that you can't fail. But then you're like, so then why do I feel like I'm afraid of failure? Well, that's because we need to acknowledge the other quote unquote elephant in the room. Yes, you are a soul having a human experience, but your soul chose to incarnate in this physical body in the 3D into this mind. And your mind, we can say, has different aspects and parts to it. So your mind has an ego, and your ego is rooted in survival. You might also call another part of yourself your inner child, the part of you that has experienced different things throughout this lifetime, that inner child self, who's more of like who you kind of protect and think of in like a childlike innocence, which can be different than the part of you that you think is more ego survival driven. Now, for some people, in your own practice of dialoguing with your inner mind, you might just find that you either categorize things as, oh, that feels like my ego. Oh, this feels like my inner child. She feels unsafe. And maybe you just have those two distinctions in addition to your wise self or your soul self. Now, some people, if you've ever done something called internal family systems, IFS therapy, it's just a form of therapy, kind of inner child healing. And from there, you might find Whether you've done that or not, just know that you can create more distinctions when you begin to dialogue with your mind. So, like I said, you can either just call everything either ego or inner child, or people might start to name different aspects of their ego, like, this is the part of me that's my inner critic. Oh, this is the part of me that doesn't want me to fail. Oh, this is the part of me. It's like for me, I sometimes call it like my logic part. This is like my logic part really coming on, and she's really trying to make sense of things. Now, yes, all of those are really just different aspects of your ego. So you can call them ego, you can call them other things. But with that, that's what I want you to know. That's why you feel failure. That's your ego. And maybe even your inner child coming in, because your inner child maybe at some point was punished when she quote unquote failed. Let's talk about what are the definition of failure though. Failure is the apparent lack of success. To be unsuccessful in achieving one's goal, neglect to do something, to not succeed in what you're trying to achieve or in what you are expected to do. So when you think about failure, it appears like there's these two things that come with it. There is some type of outside expectation of something you're supposed to do that you failed. So there's an outside expectation. And with that outside expectation, it might be basically this goal that you set for yourself. But it is likely that this goal might be just this cherry that society dropped and said, you should be hitting this. You should be hitting this goal. Notice the words should be, supposed to. Just some random goal, an outside expectation. In those words itself, it's like that feels ego driven. That doesn't feel soul aligned. That feels ego driven. Ego will latch on to these tangible goals of the 3D that society says we're supposed to hit or that we should have done. And then when we don't hit them, we say, oh, I failed. So, and then the other thing that we might associate failure with is because we feel like we don't do the thing, whatever this outside expectation or goal is that society or someone at some point laced would be the thing for you. Or maybe you are actually going after a goal that feels soul driven, a goal that's in your heart, something that's in your desire, something that you really want, and that does feel soul aligned, but you are putting a time constraint on it. So you might feel like you failed because you're meant to like put forth this business. You're meant to help X amount of people. Let's say your books aren't full yet. Maybe you don't have as many one-on-one clients as you'd like to book. Maybe you don't have as many people in your membership as you'd like, in your retreat, in your XYZ, whatever it is that you're putting out into the world. And that goal feels soul aligned, but you're not quite there yet. You haven't quite figured it out yet. And so then it's like, oh, I failed. But the failure is coming from some type of time pressure, time constraint. And so a few things. You cannot fail. You cannot fail. And you will remember that the more you continue to align with your soul self. Because failure, the word in of itself, everything, the definitions that I read, lack to succeed, unable, unsuccessful in achieving one's goal, that's all ego driven. And so the reason why you can't really fail is because those are ego driven. Honestly, so again, it can be either that because they're ego driven, quote unquote, fake goals that really are not even in your heart, but things that you just feel like you were supposed to do or that society said. So it's because ego driven goals, not even soul aligned. Or you are chasing after something soul aligned, and therein lies the problem. You're chasing after it, meaning you don't trust that it's already yours. If you feel like you're chasing, you're already losing. And there we are in another ego trick. Time is irrelevant. Time is irrelevant, you guys, okay? So there is no such thing as failure because you don't have to get anything done in XYZ time. Your soul is infinite. It came here to learn lessons. Yes, you have heart desires and things that you want to bring forth from your heart, which you can and you will, but you have to trust it. You can't keep getting stuck in the ego tricks. The ego-driven goals, the ego-driven like time constraints. Okay, so ego-driven goal would say, I need to be the perfect mom, whatever that means. You likely, your ego probably has some version of what that's supposed to mean. So an ego-driven goal, I'm supposed to be a perfect mom. But a more soul-aligned path, purpose would be, you know what? I'm here to walk alongside my children, and we're teaching each other soul lessons as we navigate this journey together. Guess what? When you pick the second one, you can't fail because you just see everything as a lesson and a walk alongside your child, who, by the way, your child is really just another soul. They're basically like an adult, but we all get reborn again in a childlike mind. That's just the process we signed up for here on earth. But we need to treat our children like basically young, respectful, be respectful of them because they're like mini adults. And then we all just get reborn. And so, again, or an ego-driven goal is that, like, I need to have a perfect launch and the metrics need to look a certain way and blah, blah, blah. And I need to get this many people in. Well, of course I want you to have a successful launch, but I don't want it to be ego-driven. So instead of saying I need to have the perfect launch, it might be like, you know what? I am on this path where I'm going to take a messy, inspired action, knowing that I am always being divinely guided, loved, held, and supported so that I can impact the most people. And when you focus on the impact and supporting more people, and you see if something doesn't convert how you wanted it to in your launch, you see it as another lesson and you drop in and you ask, what is my soul learning from this? And how can I take the next messy, inspired action? It's not about being perfect. So I want to remind you, your soul already knows this. There is no such thing as failure. There's only soul lessons, and we need to be able to start taking radical responsibility for how you can begin to co-create your life with your higher self. And the thing is, all of this to say, the goal is actually to not resist, ignore, suppress, or ask for the ego to die. There is no ego death. You guys, you are in a human body. You are not getting rid of your ego. Trying to suppress it, ignore it, resist it, or otherwise only makes it kick harder. And to be honest, it's actually, and it ends up making your ego really good at hiding. So then you may think you're in some soul aligned way, but you're really not. The ego is just being sneaky and it's hiding because it knows that you're trying to be all soul and woo wooey, but you're not actually healing the ego. You're not actually talking to your ego. So then the ego just like knows how to wear a mask and act like it's part of the group. Okay. You don't get rid of the ego. So my advice is learn how to work with your ego, learn how to face your ego, learn how to send love and compassion to your ego and heal. When I started doing the past life and subconscious healing to heal my ego, to heal my inner child, excuse me, I've got like lingering cough stuff going on. Hence why, if you haven't already noticed on this broadcast, yes, somewhere here, I do have a red eye that you might have noticed. I've had a prolonged sustained cough. The cough, unfortunately, ended up popping one of my blood vessels in my eye. So just know my eye does not always look like that. Okay, I digress. Do the past life and subconscious healing. When I did that, my entire life has changed. I have fully remembered that I am a soul having a human experience. I have tapped into all of my intuitive gifts, my spiritual powers, as we call them. I can now finally rest and surrender into my divine feminine. I fully believe that the timeline that I'm aiming for, it's already done. I know that it's already done. And I know that it doesn't matter in the 3D how long it takes to get here. I know that I'm just on the journey of enjoying it. And I take messy, inspired action, knowing that I'm going towards my goal, my soul purpose, my soul mission. And no longer do I expect to see a 50-page manual come through. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, because you're not going to get the 50-page manual, because honestly, time is anything but like set in place. There are multiple timelines happening, and you get to pick which one you go based on your sovereign choice and other people's choices, because that's just it. We're all in this like matrix together. And so every choice we make can make for a new timeline. And technically, you can carry out your soul mission and purpose in so many different ways, and it can all be beautiful. Some might look more beautiful than others. Some might look a little messy. Nothing is set in stone. There is no 50-page manual. But when you begin walking the soul journey and you heal and you remember that you get to have fun during this process, you don't want the 50-page manual anymore because that's ego driven. The ego wants the 50-page manual because it's using it to be safe. But your soul self, the more you tap into her, she already knows you're safe. Like, I'm good. I'm good. And I just need to know the next step. And I just co create that with my higher self. And I did not get here by ignoring or suppressing my ego. I faced it and I healed her. And I continue to dialogue with my ego and my inner child. You can do this work too. So, doors will be opening for Higher Self Awakening we'll be formally restarting the program at the end of January. Doors will open in the middle of January. If you want to make sure you hear more about it, go to higherselfawakening.com or mariaservice.com/higher-self-awakening. Either way, you will find it. If you want to awaken your soul self, step into your intuitive CEO era, and do a bundle of quantum healing in the Akashic Records. I would love to have you with us.